Ghost in Berlin, Episode 1. Produced by History Thrillers. Chapter 1. A City of Secrets. Berlin, 1942. The train slid into Anhalter Bahnhof beneath a haze of coal smoke and snow. The station was dim, a cavernous cathedral of steel arches and shadow, lit only by weak amber lamps and the dull gleam of Wehrmacht helmets. Elias Richter stepped down onto the platform, adjusting the brim of his officer's cap with practiced precision. His uniform was immaculate, the double-breasted black coat, the polished boots, the silver insignia glinting faintly. All of it had been stitched and assembled in London, down to the forged identity papers tucked into his inner pocket. He was not a Nazi officer, but tonight he had to look like one. The scent of wet ash and diesel filled his lungs as he moved through the crowd of soldiers, civilians, and railway workers. Posters of the Führer loomed overhead, their smiling promises a stark contrast to the hollow eyes of the refugees huddled by the tracks. A military policeman stopped Elias at the exit, glancing at his papers. The scrutiny lasted only seconds, too brief, Elias thought. Either his disguise was flawless, or Berlin's defenders were growing complacent. "Welcome home, Hauptmann Richter," the guard said, snapping to attention. Elias gave a curt nod, masking the faint tremor of adrenaline in his veins. Home. The word stung. He had been gone from Germany for 6 years, since the night he'd slipped across the Dutch border with nothing but a false passport and a promise to serve a country that no longer trusted its own sons. Now he was back, a ghost wearing the enemy's colors. Outside, Berlin was a city of silhouettes and whispers. Snow clung to the cobblestones like frost on a corpse. Searchlights swept the sky in wide arcs, scanning for British bombers. Somewhere far off, a siren wailed, mournful and distant. Elias lit a cigarette, if only to steady his hands. His first stop was a cafe on Friedrichstrasse, a modest place where the windows were half covered in blackout curtains. Inside, warmth and cigarette smoke curled around the room, and a pianist played something soft and melancholy. He took a seat at a corner table, back to the wall. A waiter approached. "What will it be, Herr Hauptmann?" "Coffee," Elias said. His accent was flawless, every syllable sharp and Prussian. Years of training had drilled out the faint traces of his Bavarian childhood. While he waited, he studied the other patrons. A pair of Luftwaffe officers laughed over schnapps. A man in a threadbare coat glanced nervously at the door every few seconds, and at the far end of the room, a woman in a crimson dress sang softly with the pianist. Her voice was low, sultry, almost hypnotic. Clara Weiss, the resistance courier. She never looked his way, but Elias knew she'd seen him. That was her way, calm, deliberate, always in control. She finished the song, accepted a round of applause, and disappeared behind the stage curtain. Minutes later, a folded scrap of paper was slipped beneath his saucer. He didn't open it yet. Not here, not with so many eyes. Instead, Elias rose, left a few Reichsmarks on the table, and stepped back out into the cold Berlin night. The city hummed with quiet menace. A black Mercedes staff car rumbled past, its headlights slicing through the fog. Elias pulled his coat tighter and walked on, the message burning against his palm. Tonight, he was supposed to meet his contact, a handler known only as Valkyrie. But in this city of secrets, every shadow felt like a gun barrel, every glance a threat. He ducked into an alley and unfolded the note under the weak light of a street lamp. 2 words scrawled in hurried ink. "You're compromised." Elias's breath caught. Somewhere behind him, footsteps echoed. Elias slipped the note into his pocket, his pulse quickening. The footsteps behind him grew louder, measured, deliberate. A soldier on patrol, or someone hunting him? He turned casually, as if checking for a taxi, and caught a glimpse of a man's silhouette at the mouth of the alley. Broad shoulders beneath a heavy coat, a brimmed hat pulled low. No insignia, no uniform. The kind of man who didn't want to be seen. Elias lit another cigarette, using the flare of the match to mask a quick scan of his surroundings. The alley narrowed ahead, leading to a side street. He started walking, calm but brisk, every sense sharpened. The snow underfoot muffled his steps, but his shadow stalker's boots crunched louder with each stride. Halfway down the alley, Elias palmed the small Walther pistol hidden in his coat pocket. The weight was cold, reassuring. He reached the street corner and glanced left, deserted except for a street lamp flickering weakly through the fog. To the right, a tram rattled past, sparks flashing overhead. No cover. The man behind him spoke. "Halt!" Elias froze, heart hammering. The voice was low, German, and calm. Too calm. He turned slowly, cigarette dangling from his lips, feigning boredom. "Do I know you?" he asked in perfect Berlin dialect. The man stepped closer, revealing a square jaw, a scar down his cheek, and sharp, predatory eyes. He reached into his coat, not for a gun, but for a folded badge. The black eagle of the Gestapo glinted under the street lamp. "Your papers," the man said. Elias exhaled smoke, buying time. "Of course," he said smoothly. He reached into his coat, right hand for the papers, left hand still gripping the pistol's handle. He handed over the documents, watching the Gestapo man's eyes flick across them. "Berlin Command?" the man asked, raising a brow. "Strange. I don't recall a Hauptmann Richter in my files." Elias smiled faintly. "Then your files need updating." The man's hand shifted toward his holster. Elias moved first. A sharp sidestep, a twist of his wrist, and his Walther barked once, the shot muffled by the alley walls. The Gestapo officer crumpled silently, blood staining the snow. Elias crouched, checking the man's coat. No backup radio, no signal flares. That was strange. Why was he alone? No time to think. Elias dragged the body into the shadows behind a stack of crates, covering it hastily with an old tarp. His breath came quick and shallow now, misting in the icy air. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed again, closer this time. The note in his pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. "You're compromised." He straightened his uniform and stepped back onto the street, slipping into the sparse foot traffic of Berlin's midnight hour. Every window felt like an eye. Every car passing by felt like a hunter. He needed to vanish. He ducked into a tram station and boarded the first car headed east, blending in with weary workers and uniformed soldiers. As the tram lurched forward, he caught a flash of himself reflected in the fogged glass. A perfect Nazi officer, calm and composed. No one here would know he had just killed a Gestapo agent in a dark alley. No one, except whoever had written that note. Across the tram, a woman in a nurse's uniform glanced up at him briefly, then lowered her gaze. Elias's instincts prickled. She shifted her bag, and a slip of paper peeked from its pocket. Not another note. The tram jolted to a stop. She rose, leaving the bag behind. Elias hesitated, then reached for it. Inside was a handkerchief and a single matchbox. He flipped it open. No matches, just a tiny, rolled piece of paper. Unfolding it under his coat, he read one word. Lisbon. A destination, a lifeline, or a trap. When he looked up, the nurse was gone. Elias stuffed the matchbox into his pocket just as the tram lurched again. He scanned the faces around him, mostly tired men and women, their expressions dulled by war and hunger. No one seemed to notice him, yet something gnawed at his instincts, that subtle hum of danger he'd learned to trust. A soldier at the far end of the tram stood suddenly, speaking in clipped German to the conductor. The tram slowed. Elias caught a glimpse of 2 black cars parked at the next stop, their headlights slicing through the fog. Gestapo. He rose casually, stepping off the tram before it came to a full stop. His boots hit the snow-covered street, and he walked briskly toward a side alley. Behind him, orders barked out. A sharp whistle pierced the air. They were looking for him. Elias turned the corner just as a spotlight flared behind him. Shouts echoed. He broke into a sprint, boots pounding against slick cobblestones. The city around him became a blur of brick walls, shadowed doorways, and crisscrossing beams of light. Somewhere, a machine gun clattered to life. Warning shots. He ducked into a narrow passage, leaping over a crate, heart thundering. Ahead, a steel gate blocked the way. He holstered his pistol and scrambled up, boots slipping against the icy metal, hands raw from the cold. A bullet sparked against the gate below him. He vaulted over and dropped into another alley, landing hard. His breath tore at his lungs as he ran, weaving through backstreets until the shouting grew distant. The cold bit deep, but adrenaline kept him moving. At last, he burst into a deserted courtyard surrounded by looming apartment blocks. A single light flickered in an upstairs window. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. He leaned against a wall, listening for pursuit. Silence, except for the faint hum of the city. For now, he was alone. He pulled out the matchbox again. Lisbon. The word gnawed at him. The neutral port city was a nest of spies, smugglers, and double agents. If his network wanted him there, things were worse than he thought. His cover was blown. The Gestapo were on him already, and someone inside his own operation knew exactly where to find him. The window above flickered once more, then went dark. A signal? Or just another Berliner dousing their lamp against the blackout orders? Elias forced himself to move. Standing still was death. He melted back into the shadows, every step measured, his pistol ready. The game had changed tonight, and Berlin was now a hunting ground. Thanks for listening to The Ghost in Berlin. If you're enjoying the story so far and would like to read the full ebook, you can find it now, available in PDF and EPUB, via the link in the show notes.